Ladies and gentlemen, please come and sit down. Now we are starting the line number 2. And we will start all pitches. As I told you before, we have not only pitches today, we have only interesting speakers with the topics to open them, to discuss. And now I want to invite Mr. Soham Panchamia. Mr. Soham Panchamia, where are you? Yes, come here, please. And Mr. Soham will tell you an overview of regulations impacting Web3 companies in the United Arab Emirates, with an emphasis on key points from the VERA regulations. Please start. If you need it, you can take also.
So I'm sure all of you are very excited to hear about why regulations are important. Because they are, mostly because nobody likes them, but you've still got to follow them. So one of the things I do is work with a lot of Web3 companies to help them understand what are the regulations they have to follow and what are the regulations that they can work with in a way that is the most cost-effective and time-effective way of doing so. So over here, you see a little bit of a background on what the regulatory regime in the UAE looks like. You've got 5 regulators, and the main thing you've got to realize is, depending on where you operate in the UAE, a different regulator's rules will be applicable to you. As of last week, pretty much every major regulator has released a whole series of rules to make sure that Web3 companies have to follow certain rules and guidelines. And it's extremely important that any founder and any VC working in this space fully understands what obligations are upon them when they start their business or when they get their money and decide to invest in a business, only to realize that that business now has to go through a years-long process in order to be able to actually go to market. The most important rulebook that I think anybody here needs to be aware of is the Virtual Asset Issuance Rulebook. And the only reason for mentioning this one over all the others is very simple. For all the other kinds of rule books, these are traditional financial services. If you're engaging in starting an exchange, if you are performing a broker-dealer service, if you're doing anything along those lines, you pretty much know chances are you're going to get regulated. But the Virtual Asset Issuance Rulebook, which has been issued by VARA, is unique pretty much in the entire world, because now, if you're a Web3 company that simply issues a token, any kind of token, you have to get registered. It doesn't matter if you're a gaming platform. If you've got an in-house token that goes outside of your platform and gets listed on Binance, VARA is going to know about it. If you've got a social media platform and you've got a token over there, as one of my clients is currently realizing quite painfully, you have to get registered. So the question now becomes, how do you want to deal with this? And what provision are you making in your slide deck, in your business plan? And how are VCs now considering projects knowing that this is a huge aspect of everything that's going to affect them? And bear in mind that while this is only the current state of play in the UAE, all the popular jurisdictions for Web3 companies have their own sets of regulations now. Whether that be the BVI or Cayman, where most Web3 companies are setting up their foundations, whether that be in Bahrain, whether that be in Saudi, whether that be in Singapore, in Hong Kong, in London, in Switzerland, in New York. Wherever you go, the local regulator is very interested in what you're doing, because they've realized that people in this space are not just playing around with fake coins, they're actually playing around with very real money. And as soon as money gets involved, governments are interested. It's too late to go back to the times of 2018, where it was a free-for-all, everybody could list whatever they wanted and they could launch an ICO and do whatever the hell they wanted. Now, the rules are here. So if you want to survive in this marketplace, you want to thrive in this marketplace, you've got to come in line with every other tech company that operates in the Web2 space, which is that whenever they go into a fundraising, whenever they go into discussions with the VC, whenever a VC engages in discussions with a project, one of the first questions they have to ask is, how quickly can you go to market aside from just making your product? what is it going to take for your product to actually be allowed to go to market? What jurisdictions are you going to be in when you launch? Do you have the right to be in those jurisdictions? It's very easy to say we operate in a decentralized way, anyone, anywhere can use us. But unfortunately, we still live in a world with national borders and boundaries, and each of those countries has their own rules. And if you want to operate in a legitimate legal way and not out of, say, St. Kitts and Nevis or Panama, but actually in a jurisdiction where a VC is going to look at you and know you're not going to run away with their money and disappear to the Seychelles, you've got to operate in one of the major jurisdictions like the UAE. And if you want to operate here, these are the rules, and there's going to be some money to pay. It's not the end of the world. It's just something that has to be accounted for as you plan and as you progress. So, as I can see from this riveted audience, you're all dying to know more about regulations. If any of you want to have a chat about the kinds of problems you're facing or the issues that you might want to consider as you take your project forward or you invest in a new project that you're looking at, find me in the crowd. Let's have a chat. Always happy to have a good conversation. Regulations, I'm a jam. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Soham.